President Buhari was a participant at the recently concluded Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting that held in London. The president departed Nigeria on Monday, the 16th of April 2018, after declaring his intention to contest the 2019 presidential election.
All right, now his declaration raised a lot of dust back home while he was away in the UK. And just before the dust settled down, President Buhari was caught in another controversy over some statements he made in London. World leaders that attended the meeting discussed various issues ranging from politics, business, youth, women development, and the future of the Commonwealth. But for Nigerians, the highlight of the president's trip is what many have termed his negative comments about Nigerian youths.
Well, President Buhari, while speaking at the Commonwealth Business Forum in Westminster, stated that a lot of Nigerian youth, a demography that makes up to 60% of the population, is uneducated and expects freebies from the government just because Nigeria is an oil-producing country. Now, Buhari's statement was met with a lot of backlash, and the hashtag Nigerian youth not lazy quickly began to trend. Well, the president has been accused of not failing to demarket Nigeria and Nigerians at every given opportunity. Is he guilty as charged? Well, we'll be looking at this, of course, with our guest in the studio, a lawyer, a public affairs analyst, Wale Fapohunda. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to have you.
Yes, indeed. And of course, we have joining us from our Abuja studio, the special advisor on media and publicity to President Muhammadu Buhari, Femi Adesina. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yes, indeed. Okay, let's begin with you, Mr. Femi Adesina. Critics have been wondering if this President Buhari's trip to Chogam really paid off for Nigeria and Nigerians. As far as they're concerned, well, it depends on where you're standing. He only ended up demarketing Nigeria.
Well, I'm glad you call them critics. If they are critics, they will hardly find anything good or positive in you. So you use the right word for them, critics. So once they are critics, they should criticize. But one thing they do not realize is that when you go for multilateral meetings like Commonwealth, like AU, like UN, it is not something that you come back and say, we have made this amount of money. It's not like a woman going to the market and when she gets back home, she will say, oh, I took goods worth 100,000 naira to the market. I sold 90,000 naira. That's not what multilateral meetings are for. So the critics are just ignorant and they should learn.
All right. When you talk about the issue of ignorance, the statement credited to the president about Nigerian youth, the issue of he didn't directly say Nigerian youth were lazy, and when he said Nigerian youth, a lot of them, 60% of the population makes, 60% of Nigerian population are made up of youth under 30, and a lot of those are not educated, they are illiterate, and they expect freebies. What's the difference between that and saying Nigerian youths are lazy?
One, he said they were uneducated. Then he said they wanted everything given to them on a platter of gold because Nigeria was an oil-producing nation. Any youth that does not fall in that bracket has nothing to worry about. Any youth that has gone to school, that is gainfully engaged, needs no bother about that. But then the truth is, are there idle youths in Nigeria? Yes. Are there idle youths in other parts of the world? Yes. Every country in the world has its own share of idle population. So what the president said should not have drawn the kind of angst or ire or backlash that he did if some people were not truly idle. I think idle people were those who made who made heavy weather out of what the president said.
Yeah, well,
if they were engaged, they would do other things.
Yeah, well, some people say that that response from Mr. President was not necessarily in response to the question that was asked. And it was an opportunity for Mr. President to sell Nigeria and to tell the business community, the global business community at least, that Nigeria is a country to do business with. And he should have emphasized more on the reasons why they should invest in Nigeria and not say what he said.
You know, these are the days of distortions and twisting and tweaking and manipulating. Almost every word that Mr. President says now is twisted. So maybe the part of the video available to you is where he said what he said. But the full text of the video needs to be viewed. If people will be patient enough and scrupulous enough to watch the entire proceedings, they will see that there is nothing out of place in it.
But another question that Nigerians raise is why is it
always... What happened was that some people just took part of what interested them.
Yeah, but then again, on the other hand, Nigerians ask, why is it easy for the president to, speak to the global press? But in Nigeria, since he became president, he has only spoken to the Nigerian press once in 3 years. And when he goes out, he just shoots from all sides.
That is not quite correct.
Okay.
No, that is not quite correct. I can tell you that in the past 2 years, Mr. President has not spoken to any press, whether home or abroad. He has not spoken to any press. And you said he has spoken to the press only once in Nigeria. That's also not true. Unless you are saying that a presidential media chat parallels talking to the press and nothing beyond that. It's not true. Mr. President has talked to different media houses. I know he has talked to This Day. I know he talked to Sun newspaper, he talked to Daily Trust, he talked to so many newspapers, particularly on the second anniversary of the, not second he was not at home. Shortly before he traveled on medical trip, he talked to many media houses. So a media chat is not the same thing as granting media interviews. He has granted many. And since he went on medical trip till now, he has not talked to any media house, locally or internationally. When he speaks at engagements, home or abroad, he is quoted. And that is what some people are equating with talking to the media. They need to get their facts right, particularly those in the media industry.
All
because
right. Femi, I'll come back to you.
We should not pass the wrong.
Yeah, Femi, I'll come back to you. Let me bring in Wale here. Now, the issue of the statement of the president, we've heard the presidential spokesperson there say that a lot of people twist what the president said. Others will say, well, if the president is sensitive to the fact that his statements are going to be twisted, being the #1 citizen of the country, he should be more circumspect with what he says.
Well, the starting point is this. I think we need to look at the president's statement from the perspective of the reality on ground. And then again, let us examine the truthfulness in what the president has said. I wish I have a different opinion from Femi Adesina, but unfortunately, I want to agree with some of the things he has said. Now, I was discussing with a group of friends, and I said, look, you guys are saying this man said the youths are lazy. Now, the starting point is this. You are not even diligent enough to listen or read the correct and actual reports, to listen and determine whether this man actually used the word lazy. That's the starting point.
Is it about using the word lazy?
No, the man
what it
or
means,
what he implies.
What it means when it says
at the end of the
they
day.
sit around and expect to get free health, free education,
I'm
free
coming
this
there.
and
I'm
free
coming
that.
there. What I'm saying is this. If you are drawing it by implication, tell us you are drawing it by implication. Don't go about quoting the man out of context. That's what I'm saying. That's the first thing. Then secondly, let's examine what he said. The man said most of the Nigerian youth are uneducated.
A lot.
A lot. He said a lot are uneducated.
Yeah.
He said they are looking, because Nigeria is an oil-producing nation, and the implication of that is that they have entitlement mentality. Now, in 2017, UNESCO conducted a survey in Nigeria, and then they came up with a figure that 65 million Nigerians are uneducated, mostly youths.
Yeah.
Now, that figure is alarming. In a country that you have free primary education, you have free secondary education, and almost free tertiary education, at least at public institutions. I'm a product of public institutions, so I know what I'm talking about. Now, there are regions and there are some states or there are some areas in Nigeria where we know, as a legal practitioner representing clients, I know that companies, multinationals operating in those areas, as a result of trying to fulfill their corporate social responsibility, want to provide infrastructure. The youth in those areas will pick up arms and say, you have to give us money before you do our roads. You have to give us money before you do borehole. We see all these things. Now, even in Lagos State, kudos to the governor of Lagos State for passing the laws on anti-land grabbing law and all of that. But even the enforcement is an issue. You buy a land from the locals in Lagos State, except for lands you buy from the state government. The Omuniles will come up. They are mostly youths.
Yeah, that's a product of ignorance and the lack of education. Yeah. Education has not been provided to them, so they're not even able to process that this is in their own good. But the real question is, was that the forum where the president should have made that statement? Even if we say, yes, it's a statement of fact, it represents the truth about the situation in Nigeria.
Well, unfortunately, you have a president that doesn't mince words. You have a president that is not a typical Nigerian politician. You have a president that speaks the truth, and that's one of the reasons why most times it's being quoted out of context. But for some of us, we want to look away beyond whether it is the proper forum. We want to look at the truthfulness in what he has said.
No, but the point there is, when it comes to international politics and diplomacy, it is the same thing everywhere. No one, even the president of the poorest country in the world will not go to the international platform to tell the whole world that his country is the poorest.
No, the man is simply saying, this is the exact situation in my country.
So
what do you expect him to go and give a false figure?
But the point there is, it is still the same Nigerian people and youths that are doing the best in the world. It is still the same Nigerian youth.
He didn't say all Nigerian youth.
So we expect that the leader in that context.
If he's that biased towards Nigerian youth, you have a Bayo Moboriowo, who is his official photographer. You have his personal assistant, the Mr. Sabiu. These are people that falls within this age bracket. And yesterday I was just reading that he appointed someone as executive director of the rural electrification, a 32-year-old man. So it's not like he's biased. And it's not like he's saying that all Nigerian youths. He's simply saying that a lot of them, and that is the truth of the matter.
All right, let's go to Mr. Femi Adesina. He's nodding there. He seems to be agreeing with you. All right, let's move away from the issue of what Mr. President said. Were there any achievements on this trip? Was it worth it? Did President Buhari strike any deals that we should begin to see, show up in Nigeria as a fallout of his visit?
Well, let me first thank Barrister Fapohunda for being my solicitor and advocate. I think he has put it quite well. Then, now coming to your question, did he strike deals? Multilateral meetings like Commonwealth, like UN, like AU are not for striking deals. They're not for striking deals. On the sidelines of such meetings, you can strike deals. And that happened in London because he met with Shell. And Shell promised that in a couple of years, they will be investing the sum of $20 billion in Nigeria. That you will call a deal. But it was on the sidelines of the Commonwealth. There were one or two other meetings like that he also held. For instance, he will be going to US over the weekend and meeting with President Trump on Monday. On the sidelines of that trip, he will meet with some business people. But when you have multilateral meetings like the Commonwealth, it's not for striking deals.
So you're
The
saying,
theme of that
you're
Commonwealth
saying that President
meeting
Buhari
was towards a common future.
Yeah, you're saying he did not necessarily have a shopping list as he went to Chogam. But tell us very quickly, this same-sex marriage reversal that Theresa May, the British Prime Minister, suggested, that President Buhari and, of course, other Commonwealth governments should reverse with an incentive too. We haven't heard any kind of response from Mr. President as per this call.
Okay, two things. You said he went without a shopping list. You don't go to that kind of meeting with a shopping list. But when he met with British PM Theresa May, there was a shopping list. He asked for help on security. He asked for help on economy. He asked for help on anti-corruption. He asked for help for even Nigerian youths in that bilateral meeting with the PM. Now, to the other issue, same-sex marriage. For us in Nigeria, it's a settled issue. It's a settled issue. The Nigerian legislature has passed a law outlawing same-sex marriage in Nigeria. And then in 2015, when the president went to America during the Obama days, the issue had come up. And the president had replied that it's an unnatural thing and Nigerians abhor that kind of relationship. So for us, it's a settled matter. There is no need for him to begin to flog a dead horse again.
All right, Femi, let me still stay with you on this. Part of what the president talked about there was the issue of identifying trade and investment facilitation and regional integration in Africa. That's African countries trading between and within themselves, as well as Commonwealth countries. But there was supposed to be a summit for free trade in Rwanda, which the president didn't attend. Talk to us about that. Isn't that contradictory?
Yes, it depends on what the rules are, what the regulations are, what the expectations are. Why the president refused to sign the Africa Free Trade Agreement Charter? He said there needed to be further consultations in the country. Consult with manufacturing bodies, consult with trade union and all that. And that consultation is going on now. Because he said anything that Nigeria will sign that will cripple its local industries will not help the country. But the Commonwealth now wants intra-Commonwealth trade. But the agreements will be spelled out. If it will mean that goods would then also be dumped in Nigeria to cripple local industry, you can be sure our president will not be party to it. So it depends on what the agreements are going to be. In June, Commonwealth ministers are going to meet again, where they are going to fashion out the way forward on the agreements that were reached at the Commonwealth Summit.
All right, of course, we can't leave you without mentioning this very thorny issue, the issue of herdsmen attacks. Part of what President Buhari has been criticized for during his Chogam trip is the blame game, the seeming blame game, where he said categorically to the, Archbishop Justin Welby that it's Gaddafi's men that are responsible for the herdsmen attacks. And people are weighing that side by side with a statement that came from him in Benue that Nigerians should accommodate their countrymen.
No. Sorry, because you have just repeated an inexactitude. It's inexactitude to say the president said it is Gaddafi that is responsible. No, the president just gave a background to the problem in the sub-region. He said the sub-region is awash with a lot of illegal arms, and the illegal arms emerged from the Sahel because Gaddafi, during his 42 years reign, trained a lot of militia who helped him to hold power in Libya. And when eventually Gaddafi was killed, was that 2010 or 2011, those government dispersed all over Africa. They are in Mali, causing trouble. They are in Burkina Faso, causing trouble. Some of them are in Nigeria, causing trouble. The president was emphatic that in the confrontation with Boko Haram, They met some of these armed men who were killed, and they discovered that they were part of the militia trained by Gaddafi. But lo and behold, these idle people twisted that word again, and they began to wail that the president had said it was Gaddafi causing trouble in Nigeria. I think we need to stimulate our intellectual resources to interrogate these things better. He never said Gaddafi, who has been dead for about 6 years now, is the one causing trouble. Rather, he said it's a fallout of what Gaddafi did.
Okay, Wale, let me bring you in here. When it comes to the issue of the herdsmen killing in the middle belt of Nigeria and parts of the country, a lot of Nigerians feel that the president's direct or deliberate move or even body language is not helping in this situation.
Well, I think from my understanding, and if I recollect properly, I think this is not a novel issue in Nigeria. It's not a novel problem. It didn't just start today. I think the herdsmen farmers clashes have been there for a very long time in Nigeria. And I also think that based on our political setup, we always like to heap the blame on the person in power, which is normal. He has to be responsible. Now, unfortunately for this president, he's a Fulani man. So it's very easy to just call a dog a bad name just to ensure that you hand it over to the hanged person. I think the response of the president on this herdsmen issue has been one of trying to clearly understand what the issues are before you begin to jump the gun.
So are you saying the president doesn't understand the situation on ground?
No, he understands. He understands what the issues are, but he has to assess when a casualty happens, when a problem happens. The president needs to assess. And what I see him do is send ministers there, go and get what the exact situation is, report to me, let me understand the dynamics of this problem so that we can adopt a pragmatic approach that will solve this problem in totality.
The president is the one who gets security reports every day.
Yes, he does.
Intelligence about everything that goes on in this country. No one else in this country understands the country like the president.
Exactly.
And it's taking about 4 or 5 months now of this continuous killings. In fact, if not more than that. But this, the recent one now, especially in Benue and Taraba, is taking more than how many months now? So how do we explain that?
The security issue is not something you just prefer an overnight solution to. I understand it takes briefings. I understand he has so much security information than any other Nigerian. But at the same time, he also needs to listen to security experts. He also needs to seek opinions from his own people to understand how to tackle this problem. Otherwise, I mean, look at Boko Haram. Boko Haram started years ago, but in 2009, I think was when they killed the young man, the leaders of the Boko Haram. Muhammad Yusuf. And then it started that way. They were killing, pockets of killings and all that. Look at it, till 2018, we are still on the issue. Although one can say that it has subsided, I mean, to a very reasonable extent. So I think we are politicizing the issue, to be very honest. I think the president, to observers, may not have done enough, but I think that's probably what he can do in that circumstance. He needs to understand what the issues are. He needs to take briefings. He needs to critically examine the issue and analyze it and then provide a lasting solution to it.
And that's the point. Mr. Femi Adesina, does the president really understand what is going on with the herdsmen's killings, especially in the middle belt? When on the one hand you say, yes, this is the fallout of the Gaddafi crisis, you know, of course, Gaddafi's death and his gunmen, you know, just scampering all over the place, including Nigeria. And then on the other hand, you say, look, Nigerians, please accommodate your countrymen. I go back to the point I raised earlier. Why is it, that's the question Nigerians are asking, that the president has not been firm? Nigerians are asking, why has the president not been firm enough or demonstrated capacity or capability in putting the herdsmen killings, bringing it to an end?
Thank you. Yesterday, some worshippers were killed at a Catholic church in Benue. And I heard the deputy governor of the state say in the news last night that what is happening now has gone beyond mere farmer-herdsman crisis. And I think that was very fundamental, very, very fundamental. Because the president also in his reaction last night said apparently some people are bent on turning Nigerians against one another using religion. What happened in Benue yesterday was beyond mere farmers-herdsmen crisis. And that therefore tells you that the crisis we have on our hands is multifarious. You have the normal Fulani herdsman. He rears his cattle, he's armed just with cutlass and a stick. That's the Fulani man we used to know. How suddenly did that Fulani man transform into somebody that wields assault rifles? We need to be sure that that is the normal and routine Fulani herdsman that we knew. So it shows you that this thing is beyond just farmers' herdsmen crisis, like the deputy governor of Benue said yesterday. Some people are using the cover of herdsmen to perpetrate evil. They have a sinister motive to turn Nigeria into killing fields, to turn Nigerians against one another. And that was why they went into a church yesterday, introducing a religious dimension to it. So this matter must be interrogated and the reasons isolated. Because now we know the normal Fulani herdsman, we know now the vicious killers masquerading as Fulani herdsmen. It's a challenge for our security agencies, and I believe that it's something that will be unraveled soon.
All right, let me just ask you this last question before I let you go, Femi Adesina. The issue of security was one of the campaign promises the president had for Nigerians when he was coming in. At this time now, with the killings every single day in the Middle Belt, somewhere you hear there are killings here and there, does it seem like it has become a helpless situation now? Because sometimes we have heard ministers of the president say that these people are from parts of Mali, they're foreigners who come in here and all of that. Is it a helpless situation really?
Well, that will also show you that we are dealing with something that is orchestrated. We are dealing with something that is designed. We are seeing, that means there are some unseen hostile hands behind what is happening. Because they know that one of the greatest achievements of this administration is security. Because usually it's number one. When the president enumerates his three-pronged agenda, he will say security, anti-corruption, and reviving the economy. Now they know that a lot has been done on security, and elections are approaching. How then do we demonize and demarket this administration? Let's strike at their achievement, which is security. So I believe that a lot will be unraveled in the country in the days and months to come on these security challenges we have. There seems to be more than meets the eye in it all.
All right. I know Mike promised that that question was the last one, but let's quickly throw this in. How challenging is it for Mr. President to stick to script, whether it is in Nigeria when he goes out on events or even abroad? Do you find him difficult, when it comes to sticking to what you have given him? Mr. President, this is what you say. Don't go off script.
Well, one thing I would like to tell you is that Mr. President has a mind of his own. Yes, I will agree that there are times we will have told him, if this question comes up, address it this way. If this one comes up, address it this way. And when the crunch comes, Mr. President will just say what is in his mind. He's a straight shooter. He doesn't know how to beat about the bush. He doesn't know how to mince words. Barrister Fapohunda said earlier that he's not the typical Nigerian politician. I agree with you. He's a straight talker. He can pose some challenges at times, but, well, every forum is a forum for truth. And Mr. President stands by the truth at all times.
All right, Femi Adesina, Special Advisor on Media and Publicity to the President. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Okay.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Wale Fapohunda, I'm sure you have one or two things to say about what Mr. Femi Adesina has said, especially when it comes to the Herdsmen Attacks, that there is a more sinister motive. And the question you want to ask is, if that is the case, is it a hopeless situation, re-echoing what Mike asked? Or why is it that you're not able to meet this particular challenge if you know what it is?
Well, I do not think it's a hopeless situation. Like I said earlier, that the president needs to understand what the dynamics are, okay? Now, it looks like it's taking a different form, and it looks like it's taking a different shape. As a little boy growing up in Lagos, we used to go play football somewhere, and then we see these herdsmen with sticks, harmless sticks, and then all around. So, if they are going about with Kalashnikov now, there's a problem somewhere. And Kalashnikov is not something that anybody can just carry. It's not a pump action. You need to be trained on how to use it. So those are the dynamics I'm talking about. So the government needs to understand if it's having some kind of political undertone, they need to sit down and assess it, identify who the sponsors are. Because, clearly, it looks like it's going beyond the normal farmer-herdsman clashing, like you said. So, but the government has a job on its hand to sit down, assess the situation, identify those that are behind it. It's not a helpless situation, but I think they've got their job cut out for them. So they need to identify who is involved and ensure that they face the full wrath of the law and they ensure that the public knows about it. Because I understand that some arrests have been made. Well, we read some arrests have been made, some revelations have been made, but they need to make this public so that to continue engendering the public confidence in them.
All right, Wale Fapohunda, lawyer, thank you so much for talking to us right now.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.